Welcome to the Extra Time Podcast, where you'll hear sports stories you might not have heard about from people you might not have heard of. Let's get into this week's show.
Hello and welcome back to the Extra Time Podcast. If you are wondering why these are coming out pretty quickly, it's because we did the Olympic special. Myself and Yoda, or Woodsy, did an Olympic special recently. So make sure, if you want to hear anything Olympics, the debrief from that, all of our success, we've gone through it in great detail there. And make sure you watch that one. Have a yarn with us in the comments. Let us know if we missed anything. Let us know what you're very happy about and who you're celebrating the most out of that. But without further ado, I've got Lorenzo on the desk today with me. We're going to go through the normal stuff, starting with footy. And starting with this, we always do photo of the week, Zoe, and there's not much that beats this moment from Saturday night.
I was flipping back between the couple of football matches that were on that Saturday night and a particular other event that we will get to. Yes, Mac Andrew, you don't use, when someone takes a mark about to have a kick after a siren, you don't want them to miss it. You don't want that sort of thing to go through their head and sort of that be the focal point of a particular loss for a team. So to see him kick it, I thought it was going to hit the post off the boot, to be fair.
As did
I will
he.
admit. Yeah. I thought, oh no, this might not end well. But what a way to end the famous, as we talked about for a long time on this particular podcast, their inability to win away from home outside of Queensland and the NT. That's one way to break that particular
I'm very
drought.
disappointed because I was one that was hoping that the streak would continue and finish to the end of the year, because it's just one of those abnormal things that I find satisfaction in happening. But I guess I'm not too mad about it because it happened in a very, very sensational way. I just loved it as well because if you watch the game, he'd been belted around by the Bombers. They were in his ear. He'd given away some pretty crucial free kicks in a 50. He wasn't happy with the umpires. And there was a massive, one of the longer melees I've seen in a while, in a few years at half time. He was the main instigator with that. He would have copped heaps of stuff in the ear from the Bombers, whether it was horrendous or whether it was just saying he's no good. No one will know, but it didn't look like it made him very happy. He came out in the third quarter and kicked two straight to start and basically said, if you want to keep poking the bear, I'll bite back. And he had the last laugh. You're right. I think my favourite angle from it was the Sun's social media, who posted from like way down the other end. You could see it curve. And it only just missed that post, but it got there. So what a remarkable and really spectacular finish to that game. Basically ends the Bombers' season, barring a miracle, and gives them that away win and and Dimmer a win at the stadium.
This is where I was going with this. So two streaks have ended. The one we've already talking about, and courtesy to Swamp Thing on what was formerly known as Twitter, 1,183 days, 8 losses and a draw since Damien Hardwick went up in that press conference and says, I don't like playing here. I'd rather play all matches at the MCG. Couldn't get a win. They finally, a Damien Hardwick coach team has finally won at Marvel Stadium.
After the siren as well. So basically
Rest
with
in
no
peace
clock
to one
going.
of the great footy stats.
Just remarkable and a very spectacular moment, as was this, which just might be the mark of the year. If you haven't seen it, it won't be hard to find because it's Harley Reid. Just go to any sort of social media and you'll be able to find it right over the top there, out on the wing down at Blundstone. In Lonnie, or Hobart, is it? Bellreef? Wherever it is. In Tassie. At North Ground, which is basically a cricket ground, Bellreef. But they play their home games down there, and they had the lead. But Harley and the spectacular West Coast Eagles got it done. A very, very good grab, this one. But overall, it was one of the best rounds we had. It was shaping.
Ridiculous.
One of the best rounds we will ever have.
Sunday probably let us down a fraction.
On the scoreboard, it did, Friday, Saturday were just something else.
Nuts.
Like leads that were, a couple of years ago, I reckon, insurmountable in terms of the way you could defend and lock up the ball. These days, I reckon, and there was analysis with this with Collingwood and how they used to hold the ball. You can't hold the ball anymore because of the holding the ball rule. It's so open now. And basically, it's nearly impossible to defeat a team when they have immense momentum. Saw that with Sydney. The Pies were trying everything. But you just can't, like, when their best players are going and the team has insane momentum, how do you stop them? We saw that with the Giants, and I learnt that last week with the Giants down in Canberra. How do you actually stop that when you can't actually hold the game up and try and wrestle momentum back unless you're getting the kick and mark, which is hard to do because of the pressure these days? Saw it with the Giants again against Brisbane. And then obviously the Bombers and the Suns. The Suns probably did it in a different way.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a headache to watch that, to be honest. Port Adelaide, again, not much of a deficit to come back from, but we're able to get it done. And it just shows that footy is so exciting this year. Everyone's saying, it's no idea who's going to win, but it's because of the type of football that's being played. It can't be locked up for too long anymore. Both sides are always going to get momentum in a game, no matter how far they are separate on the ladder. So it's just so hard to predict because of the type of footy. But to recap them all, I mean, that Friday night game was as good as a game was. I didn't see all of it. I only saw the fourth quarter of it.
Yeah.
As good as a fourth quarter of a game as you'll see, and the Swans just showed everyone that there's not too much to worry about. Yes, still a little bit sketchy in defence, a little bit still because of the guys they don't have down there, but they're big three. I mean, if you want anybody to try and win you a game, you want to be Sydney, because there's no better three in the comp, Nelly, and that's a massive call. But Isaac Heaney, who'd been down, who'd been ripped into, and he clapped back after the game. He said, look, I hate how everyone always gets on us just because we had one bad loss, and get on me because I haven't been up to standards. One of the best quarters I've seen. And Chad Warner and himself have had great ones earlier in the year, and other players from other teams have had great ones. But just could see that he was sick of it, and he just wanted to pull his team over the line and used every bit of his greatness to do so. Chad Warner, again, unstoppable, and Errol Gordon just put the finishing touches on Collingwood. So good to see them go down. I was at the lovely partner's place with her brothers and father, who are die-hard Pies fans, so that was a very good watch down in Outram there. The Giants, they are absolutely terrifying.
They were since they lost that preliminary final to Collingwood, they've basically been my premiership tip for this particular season. So I like the way they're tracking. I watch a lot of GWS because my brother's a Giants supporter, so I'm pretty much
they're terrifying.
Able to watch a lot of them. But yeah, they're brilliant.
Absolutely terrifying. When little Darcy Jones is sprinting around and making things happen, Brent Daniels, it doesn't even matter if you're a big guy, if you're the best player, they'll kill you. Brisbane, look, lost themselves the game in a way.
Yeah.
But the Giants, freaky scary. And this one, which no one was probably really taking attention to, and Bodie was telling us before that Harry Sheezer was having a historic game. It didn't matter, though. Those Eagles just found a way.
Again, this is another game. So I was with my brother watching the Lions-Giants game. We all thought, North Melbourne have this in the bag, surely. And then we go, hang on, this game's got all close here, and all of a sudden, West Coast going inside 50 again, and they end up kicking the match winner to give them a fifth win for this particular season.
A massive win too, yeah. Gets them off. They definitely can't finish on the bottom of the ladder 2 years in a row now, which is great for them. And Scully just putting another foot towards staying on as the coach next year. The Suns and the Bombers, I mentioned before, it was an absolute... I got a migraine watching the Suns trying to win this game in the fourth quarter. They were playing like they had a 4-goal lead, and I couldn't... And the Bombers were doing the opposite. They were playing like they wanted the Gold Coast Suns to win. It was an absolute... But from start to finish, it was exciting. There was goals at either end. It was a proper, home ground advantage sort of game. The Suns would kick a goal and be dead quiet. The Bombers would kick a goal and go off. It was exactly what you wanted to see from, two teams that, no one was probably expecting to have a massive must-watch game, but they played out of their skins and created one, which is really cool. On the other side of that, I'll talk about these two later in Bear Kicking, but Melbourne and Port Adelaide, absolute snooze fest. 18,000 at the G.
Yes.
Like I was feeling bad for the commentators, because how do you even make that sort of game exciting? Just wasn't. Sunday, Woodsy's Saints, I know he might have wanted to come on and talk about it, but they just got the job done against Richmond. A historically low tackle number since, I think, 2006.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So very open one under the lid there, but the Saints get a 48-point win. And then the Scarecrows are back.
Yes.
I don't know what you make of them. They were great down at the Cattery, which we spoke about last week.
Yeah.
They were horrible against the Hawks last time they were at home, and then they come out and beat everybody's flag fancy, the Dogs.
Yeah. With everything else that happened this round, you just sort of looked at that result, or the game that was going on in the third quarter. You had looks, all right, that's another thing that happened this week. Bulldogs, can't be trusted again. Not a good time to have a loss. because that dropped Brisbane's loss dropped them out of the top 4 and sort
Makes
of put
it
the
so much
Bulldogs
harder.
back into. It's good for the competition because
Yeah,
you've got
yeah.
better congestion around the bottom part of the top
And
8.
it
but
puts a lot more on the following games this year. But for the Dogs, horrible result in the end. And I think Bevo just said we just weren't ready for their best, and the best is what they got. But
it's been a
speaking
disappointing
of
season for the
crazy
Crows,
games,
quickly on just the
Go
Crows
for it.
because we obviously know what happened at the back end of last year. 15th, they are currently sitting on this ladder. They're currently behind St Kilda of all teams, but they've got a showdown this week, so they'll be
Always
pumped
winnable.
up, ready for that. Yeah, they won both of the showdowns last year. I'm pretty sure.
the Dawson after the siren was pretty remarkable there. Not quite after the siren, but another thriller happened over at Optus.
Yep.
The Dockers went down again, and your Cats.
Yes. So this was another.
They never go down.
No, it was a good performance. Relatively close game all the way through. No team was really a long way in front. Just an 11 points was the margin. Patrick Dangerfield, I thought, was brilliant in that particular game. So that's put Geelong up into 4th position. So it keeps them in touch for a potential double chance. It's just a good time to have a win this late in the season. Pretty happy with the performance overall. Yeah.
It was a very exciting watch. Again, furious that it was at the time it was. It would have been an absolutely enthralling Saturday night slot. Yeah. But 4:30, I watched the last quarter and I was in awe. Firstly, of Caleb Sarong, who actually led goal kickers with 3.
So when he kicked a goal, they put them back in front. And the moment I saw him get the ball, okay, this is going through. Yeah. I know, this is just going through.
I was sitting there.
And all I was thinking for the last 5 minutes is, if this ball goes forward, I do not want it in Sarong's hands. Yeah. Because he'll
had 22
make something happen.
disposals as well, 6 clearances. And I was just turning to my dad, I'm like, seriously, what more can he do? They just need to go with him. He's having a remarkable game. They couldn't go with him, though, because Danger turned back the clock, as you said. And, yeah, those Cats remain a scary team, Lorenzo. They're never out of it. If they're in that top 8, you just got to back them because they have some serious firepower. And congratulations to my boy, the Dart. 250 games and a win on the road. I'm sure he smashed a few cans afterwards. He kicked 1 goal too. We had 14 disposals. It was a pretty good game for the Dart there. And, yeah, you're right. They might just get a home qualifier. Do you reckon you'd rather at the G or at the
I'd
Cattery?
rather it at Geelong. I've been big on this for many years
I think it would be
now.
phenomenal.
But I don't think it'll happen.
I don't think it'll happen either.
If you're expecting the AFL to give you what you want, you probably have to be waiting a bit. I've been banging on this drum for years that Geelong and even St Kilda, the Dogs and the Roos, if they get a home final, which will be at Docklands, even all the way to a preliminary final, even if it's against a big club like a Collingwood. No, they were the better team for the last 6 months. They earned that home final. But I'd love to see it in Geelong. It won't happen.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen either. But we saw that one a few years ago. If it's anything to go by, the fairness and how the atmosphere was when Freo came down there and won, and that was a massive game.
Yeah. So Geelong's actually never won a final in Geelong. They played exactly 2. 1897 first season, lost to Western, and 2013 lost to Fremantle. So maybe if history's ends to go by, it might be better at the MCG.
It'd be cinema. Imagine if they asked Freo to come down there again, or if Brisbane get up there, or if the Port Adelaide had to come over and play at the Cattery. That's exactly why you play for that top 2 spot, to get a home final. I thought it'd be great. People are writing the Cats off. Silly stuff. Another team that people are not writing off, they're writing on, is my Hawks. And I've got the jumper on again. I didn't have it on last week, so I'm very happy.
I did tip Hawthorn for this particular game. I was expecting good things from them, and they did deliver.
Well, all I wanted was a response, and I wanted them to play 4 quarters and not disrespect the opposition like they did GWS the week before.
Well timed, by the way.
And again, and I'll keep saying it, and I know everyone's jumping on board now, but Sam Mitchell is a top 3 coach in the comp, because what other coaches...
Top 3?
He is top 3 in the comp.
Okay, go on.
Because what other coaches are getting a young team off the back of a game where they gave up a 25-point lead, and then turning around to a first half that is absolutely dominant and a 4-quarter effort against a team that just made a prelim? The connection is incredible. To get them to turn it around and already implement the learnings 5 days later and implement them already is incredible. And again, they came out with H&H, like I said, heart and hunger, and in a massive game. It was I was there, I was lucky enough to be working on the game, and I was there at 11 o'clock. And when gates opened at around midday, it was already half full, And when the Blues
crowd
run out,
too, yeah.
it was massive. Everything was just set up for the Blues. 160th
It
anniversary.
had that elimination final feeling, didn't it?
Their fans were going off chops because, they're Carlton fans and their team's on the end of it. Nothing seemed to bother the Hawks. And it just made me think back. Like, I was really worried about this one. Probably the most worried I've been this year because I went to this corresponding game last year at the G. I bought mates. We went out the night before and I was like, this will be set. We're going to actually give something for this game. We didn't kick a goal till the third quarter in that one.
Too, yeah.
I know how much Carlton love playing Hawthorn the last few years because, off the back of not being able to defend Jesse Hogan, we have to defend Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow. So all I wanted was them to just give a little bit because last time it was a horror show. So I was just glad it didn't happen again, and it shows how far we've come since then. And I'm happy what we've accomplished since July last year when we got our butts handed to them. So very happy with my Hawks, and I'll keep wearing the jumper. And this was potentially photo of the week. I think Mac Andrew and Harley probably take it, but look at that. Like that looks like it's from a grand final with the weather, the amount of people, and it felt like watching the replay back. I was like, fuck, this looks exactly like a final.
Yeah, it did.
You would be mistaken for it being a final. It looks like mid-September or the last weekend in September. And if the last week, Saturday in September, is Hawthorn playing like that, then I'll be a very happy man. But I'm just happy, like I said before, with how far they've come since that last Carlton loss, which was straight up embarrassing. Like, I'd never wanted to leave a game before, but that one I was close. We got completely outplayed. And some people say, look, Carlton were dealt horrendous injuries, as early as the first quarter, but I think a lot of the analysts are saying that's just smoke and mirrors. They were horrendous from the outset.
Yeah.
And I just love the way the Hawks play. I was thinking about this on my way in this morning. And this will sound like it's just biased because this is the way Hawthorn play, but if I was a coach or if I was a fan or if I was anyone associated with football and I could hand pick a game plan for a team or a style for a team to play with, and I remember coaching, my brother's team when he was, under 14s and stuff like that, under 12s. I used to say the most important thing for a footballer in any position is to defend. If you don't defend your opposition and respect the opposition's attack, I don't want to watch you. I hate front runners, and a lot of teams have been successful front runners and won premierships, and that's fine. You respect that, but I hate watching teams that just front run and just try and get into big high scoring games because defense they don't get back and help. My first choice for a game plan would be a team that is lethal forward of the ball, takes all risks, goes with absolute pace, and is connected and puts pressure on with the way they move the ball and gets everybody involved. But then they can't just do that because the other side of it, for me, to be my favourite and most perfect game plan, is they have to work just as hard back and do the same thing in defence. Always get to every contest, be good in the air, be good on the ground, put immense pressure on, and be incredibly fit. All 23 of them. And that's exactly how Hawthorn play. So I'm just happy watching them every week because the defence has been insane. All of them. Even little Jarman Impey taking intercept marks and then creating run. They back each other. And I think I heard the other night, on first crack, that we're going to have 7 different players with 20-plus goals. So on the end, it's not just one person. It's not a selfish thing. The midfielders spread the load as well. So, yeah, just phenomenal to watch. Makes me very happy, regardless of what the results end up being, is them playing like that. And sometimes you do get beaten. I thought the game against the Giants, they played exactly how they wanted to. They just got beaten by a better team in the fourth quarter. So those things will happen. And whether it stands up in finals, who knows? If we get there, who knows? We've still got 2 games to go. But very happy to watch on the weekend, especially because it, just threw a little dagger into Carlton and made their life very, very hard, which is good when you dismantle Collingwood and Carlton in the same season. Yes. It feels pretty good. So very, very happy with that. And again, a little note that I think Woods put in here. After round 14, which was only about 8 rounds ago,
yes,
Blues, Pies and Bombers were all in the top 4. Had people like Matty Richardson saying 100%
I think everyone's seen that over the last week. That they'll be in the top 4.
They're all not in the 8, and they've
they're not
all
in the
got a massive
Yep.
trek ahead to even get close to being back there. The Bombers have to beat the Swans and the Lions.
Yeah.
The Blues have to beat West Coast this week, but their injury list is something over 1,500 games.
I saw a lot of Carlton supporters say, "Oh no, we're not going to make that." I thought, it's a typical Carlton that you're doing great. The moment things start going terribly for you, you're
it's
like,
all over.
No, we have no hope. But I keep looking at this injury list and going, maybe this West Coast game might be a bit of a danger game for the Blues. The more I think about it.
Yeah. Well, first time they're not going to have Mackay or Kuno in a long time.
Yeah.
They've a lot of key players aren't there, and a lot of their run on the weekend wasn't there. Like people were talking about Cottrell and a few others that generate that run. Walsh is clearly not at his best. He's clearly injured still. There's only so much Paddy Cripps can do. Tom de Koning would have torn us apart, I reckon, on the weekend as well. So that's probably hurts them. And West Coast are winning games that they shouldn't for fun, and it's a big trip. But yeah, I think for me, Michael Voss isn't as good as a coach as he probably gets credit for. But in saying that, this week, if they go over there and win convincingly, like this is just all set up for Vossi to go, all right, boys, how much do we, and really show his connection with the team and really coach them to this win, because he's going to need to coach them to it.
Yeah.
The players aren't going to get in there because West Coast are very, very healthy and in form. So it's an interesting one. And then the Pies, well, they've got a couple of big games to come, but they haven't got heaps of chance because of their recent losses, and they sit, I think, down in 10th at the moment. So it's going to be very hard for them. Yeah. But, it would have been great for the league to have all the big teams in there. But I think it's great for neutral fans and fans of other teams to have all the other teams in there. And interestingly, the Hawks in 8th. Yes. We are finally in
You
8th.
Are in the 8th.
Boy, we made it hard for ourselves.
Yeah, I was looking at it thinking...
Took us about 2.5 months to get there.
Started going, they'll probably jump up in tonight. They won't quite jump Carlton on percentage, but...
It's almost more of a relief because we've had people saying we're the best team in it for 2 months, but we haven't been anywhere near the finals.
The data hasn't reflected that.
So
even
that's
close.
finally off the back.
Yeah.
The only problem is now defeating the two teams on the bottom of the ladder, because dangerous, obviously. Richmond are very dangerous, as crippled as they are injury-wise and as young as they are. Anything could happen there. I'm confident in us. But yeah, finally, after no teams gave us help, because the teams around us always kept winning as well, we're finally there. But the only team in the 8 at the moment that calls the MCG home, which is very interesting because I would actually love it as a football sort of purist, just the uniqueness and the weirdness of it. If the first week of finals has 0 games in
so
Melbourne.
I've been tracking this for the last couple of weeks, and I actually said on my account on X a couple of weeks ago, after I think not this round, the previous round, that it was good to see that the ladder for this national competition actually looks national, or the top end of it, because it's Sydney, Adelaide, Sydney, Geelong, Brisbane, Fremantle as the top 6 at the moment. So first 6, 5th and 6th get those home finals, so it'll be interesting to see where they land. And one result could cascade, like someone like Carlton. They'll probably still make it as if they win one of those games, but if they win one, lose one, they could go from 5th or 6th to potentially finishing in 8th and maybe having to go to a Sydney or a Brisbane for a away elimination final.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. You can just see, and this will make Woods nervous, but you can just see the Saints beating them in round 24. It's just something that you can just see happening. But especially as well in a year where there's all the conversations been, it's an unfair comp. The interstate teams, it's unfair for them. So how good is that for their argument then if all the decent interstate teams, like all the finals are in a different state outside of Victoria? It's going to be pretty cool. And I think, the way that the Hawks don't fear anything, I wouldn't even mind if we were on the road interstate either. But there's some pretty good teams above us at the moment, so we'll see what happens there. And that's the end of my Hawk talk, because my boy of the week is not a Hawk. It is the one and the only Dyson Heppell. I don't have too much to say about this, because there isn't words that really describe this fella. I absolutely loathe all the disrespect he gets. He knows he's not a flamboyant superstar footballer. But without him, they're awful anyway. But without Dyson Heppell, this football club would be in absolute tatters. He's the guy that captained them through all that bullshit. He's the guy that stayed around and, captained a football club, probably the hardest situation to ever captain a football club in. But there's never a better man to do that. And this photo sums him up with his best mate who he's just been through everything with. We've talked about him before. Yeah. He's probably the most incredible human to play AFL football. Like, he is right up there with the great people the game's ever seen. And I've written him down as undisputably the best Gippsland player to play in terms of representing the country. Like, he represents as a great person so well. Mind you, Scott Pendlebury came from the country. Even the great, thanks to analysis I heard a few weeks ago, Karji Greaves is a Gippsland boy.
Yes.
Like, a lot of great players, they might be better at football than Dyson, but the loyalty and the personality and how he's selfless with the massive heart, there's no one that comes close to representing football, Gippsland, himself, his club. No one has done it better, and inspiring people. He's just got so much time. Especially, like, even when that stuff was going on, they were getting belted, they were getting players come out of retirement just to get a list. Yeah. He still had heaps of time for for kids, for everybody. He's just a beautiful, beautiful man. And I did get, a little upset when I heard he's retiring the other day, because his speech put the club to tears. He's just such a heart and soul sort of bloke. And hopefully we'll see him in summer just enjoying, taking a breather, relaxing, down at his holiday house in Inverloch. Pretty big, by the way, just the way the Heppels do it. But a beautiful, beautiful family. All the best to Dyson, one of the greats. And he's called time at the end of this year. Hopefully they can give him a farewell this weekend or next. He definitely deserves it. But yeah, no more football at the end of this year for Dyson. But he is my boy of the week, and a deserved one. Yep. Now we're going to get into Bad Kicking is Bad Football. Yes. There's a lot to pack through this. I wanted to talk about this because I was sort of watching the football over the weekend thinking this will be part of the segment, or this first cab off the rank is this absolute horror show.
Yeah.
It's remarkable to me that this game was so exciting and drew my eyes so much because it was so bad at times. And I said it before, I want to highlight that fourth quarter. And Bad Kicking is Bad Football is not solely goal kicking.
No.
And this is where the Suns come in. What the hell are you doing? Essendon, so it's a double-edged sword here, right? Essendon kicked 1-9 in the fourth quarter. Mind you, their lead was very, very slim. Yeah. But the Gold Coast lead was very, very slim. And Essendon kicked that goal to get back in front. All good, right? All right, they're going to win. All right. They kept producing shots, and they missed like something stupid, like 5 consecutive. And it's like, but they were pressured because Gold Coast were trying to win the game. Oh, no. Wide open. Yeah. Jake Stringer in the middle of the ground had his skipper in the pocket, 20 metres wide open, kicks to full forward to a pack instead. Yeah. Jake Stringer himself has a regulation snap, misses. Like, they were talking regulation. I could nearly hit the wall. Like, seriously. So that's happening. So you see the 9 behind you. Gold Coast had heaps of kick-ins to get the ball end to end. How hard is that in today's game? There's so much space.
Yeah. They've opened up that.
They kept kicking to the same pack. That is textbook bad kicking is bad football. It was the last 30 seconds and they were up by 5 points and they were just kicking it dead. They were down by 3. They were down. And they kept kicking it predictable. The commentators were nearly losing their minds. I had a migraine. I nearly had to turn the Port Adelaide Melbourne game on, which is saying something.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. 1-9. Essendon will stay here for the rest of the season for that.
Yeah.
Cost themselves the game and finals.
Yeah.
With a streak.
This season was really just about Kingy or Waitley, or maybe both of them. I think it was more Kingy. They've been talking about it for weeks on SEN. It was just about getting that, just breaking that streak. That X account can disappear now. We've finally done it. First one. There are Bombers fans that I know. I haven't been alive for an Essendon premiership. I was born 2005, so the year after their 2004 victory over Melbourne in the elimination final. It was all about just getting to a final and winning one. That would have been ticked off, mission accomplished more or less for this particular season, and then building in future seasons. And they're not going to even do that by the looks of things because they've got Sydney and Brisbane as their last 2.
And it's all down to one effort in the fourth quarter. Their goals you'd kick 100 times at training. No pressure either. and just decisions from both teams kicking wise. It's just insane. And then the fact that the two kicks that win the Suns the game is a tumble barrel punt from Sam Collins and a drop punt from Mac Andrew that swings and misses the post by this much.
Yeah.
Just characterised the whole game. I mentioned the other one before, Port Adelaide and Melbourne. Just get off my screen. I'm not even going to mention them. Like, I don't want to watch either of those teams ever again. Melbourne, I don't know how they keep getting these primetime games. It is. And how do Melbourne keep getting on primetime? They're awful to watch. Boring. Nothing happens. Speaking of teams that might have cost themselves big results in finals, like high final spots, the Lions.
Yeah.
I don't need to go into the stats.
Yeah. So there's two sides to this. There's Brisbane's ball kicking. And then as I'm watching this game, I'm going, I reckon there's a stat I can pull out of this. So GWS kicked 13 goals for. That's their fourth most accurate goal kicking, minimum 15 scoring shots.
Yeah.
AFL history, club history.
Well, you leave the door open, don't you?
76.47%, yeah. So not only did Brisbane not kick poorly, GWS kicked really well in front of goals, and that was more or less the difference in a 3-goal game.
And I don't need to say too much more about the Lions because they know it. It's literally what stopped them from winning premierships the last few years. They kick horribly. Their midfielders kick horribly. They don't finish. They dominate, but they don't finish. That's the most important part of the game. Kicking the ball is what scores you goals. Kicking the ball is what gets you the ball down to your forward line to score goals. If you can't do it well enough, you open yourselves up to getting beaten. And now they might have cost themselves that second spot. We'll see what happens, but seriously, like, you can't be doing that in the Dogs.
Yeah.
I nearly vomited. I turned it on. I'd been at work, and I turned it on when I got home from the Hawks game, and they were like 8-19 or something, and I was just like, oh, I would actually vomit all over myself if I was Beveridge. If I was Luke Beveridge, I would have actually just walked home. Yeah. Like, what?
Not even bothered walking into the room
of the game. The Crows were great, and they were at full strength pretty much, and they're a very dangerous team when they are. Don't call them the Scarecrows for nothing.
Nope.
But you got so much opportunity, and that's just shot their momentum in the face, because now there's that loss, and now instead of being massively confident of another win with heaps of momentum, feeling like 2016, they're going, oh no, now we have to win. Oh no, and that's going to make the kicking worse. You can just see it, and it's a problem that's plagued them for ages as well. So, just awful around the board. Segment just bringing me no joy lately. Seriously, I hope I don't see too much of this in finals because I'll lose my bloody shit. Like, seriously. Sorry to swear, but it's annoying the bejeebers out of me. We move on, though. Game of the round. It's very, very hard this week.
It's very hard to pick, isn't it? Yeah. You feel.
I'd like the Giants and Brisbane. North and West Coast was another ripper. I think I'm going to go with Collingwood and Sydney, though.
Yeah.
That fourth quarter was electric. And the controversy that came out of it was pretty entertaining as well.
Yep.
But could go either way.
50.
And speaking of the Brisbane game, the Giants didn't have to do too much to this. They've kept it.
Yeah.
It didn't look like it.
No, it didn't look like it. This was one of the more enjoyable games from if you were looking at it from a GWS perspective, because they played another brilliant game. So they've got two games. Their last two games is Fremantle Bulldogs. They're the chance to potentially grab this, and they're going to be massively consequential for where that ladder sits as well. But they'll be happy to have this back up.
Yeah, and if you get them in Sydney for a qualifying final, that is just like, who knows how that can go for travelling teams. Not often the easiest thing to do. But yeah, they're just the absolute masters of late season. Like, everyone at the start of the year always goes, it's a cycle, because they always push deep to a prelim or a grand final, or at least a semi, and then off the back of that, everyone's going, all right, they're going to use that as motivation. They've got an amazing list. They're the favourite. They start the season favourite. They go okay. They absolutely...
They had 2 months where I was just thinking, how's this happened?
They kick the bucket and they go down outside the 8 for a little bit. Just chill out for a bit down there.
Much better than this.
And then the last 2 months, they are the best team in history. Like, they win games from absolutely nowhere, like they did in the weekend. Like, if Brisbane had a kick straight, they could have been down 10 goals in that first half. But it looked like it never even bothered them. Because they're like, oh, if we get our game going, Darcy Jones will just tear them apart.
Yeah.
Jesse Hogan's unstoppable. Like, they just manipulate the defenders so well. Jesse will win the Coleman. He's phenomenal. So, yeah, they're just entertaining as well, like you said. Like, you can't actually hate them too much because they're new, they're brash, and they're actually entertaining when they're up and about. And how can you not love watching Jesse and Toby Green and the others get around?
Yeah.
It's very cool.
We've got so many exciting players. We've talked about Darcy Jones to kick those couple of goals that were really important in ensuring that the Giants would get over the line. So yeah, they're going to be one team to watch. And again, those 2 games that they play, the last 2 weeks of the season, we'll look back on those, particularly if they're close.
Yeah.
Particularly if they come down to a couple of big moments where we could be in an alternate universe. We could be going, well, this final series looks nothing like the one we'll end up getting because of those 2 basically 50-50 games. They've got Fremantle at home and then Bulldogs in Ballarat for
it's
for the last round.
They're absolute rascals. Like they've put a dint. They put a dint in the Hawks, like smooth run for a chance at finals, and forced Hawthorn to go again and beat a good side in Carlton. They've put a dint in Brisbane as well, who looked unstoppable. Premiers, favourites, and now they've got a chance, like you said, to put a dint in Freo and the Dogs. And speaking of what's to come, well, we've got a massive one, round 23. They just get better and better, and they get bigger and bigger. Better and better and bigger and bigger. Try and say that quickly, I bet you can't. Essendon and the Sydney Swans. This is monumental.
Yeah.
Essendon have that slight chance, but not really.
No.
The Swans, it's pretty dangerous for them because would they love to win? Yes. Do they need to? Probably not. Do they want to not play so they don't get any more injuries? Yes. But they probably want to play themselves, continue that form off last week. Dangerous for the Bombers, but more dangerous for the Swans because they know that the Bombers are going to come out hard and try and win it for the sake of it. And that is dangerous because players could get injured. But you can't go into a footy game worrying about that. But I think it's going to be a belter either way. The Bombers are definitely at their best under the lid. The Swans have shown this year they can win down there, albeit they've been tested and they have been beaten by the Saints, so it could go either way. But basically, they've locked top spot up pretty well already with the chaos that's going on below. But if they win this game, it's as good as right there for them. That's your Friday night game. Gold Coast and Melbourne at People First will kick off your Saturday afternoon, a game that no one will be watching.
Nope.
Maybe to watch Mac Andrew, and that's about it.
Yes.
For some reason, Max Gawn is still playing. That's absolutely laughable. I don't know what Melbourne's doctors are thinking. Clayton Oliver was playing again with about 4 different injuries. He's finally gone for surgery. Just an absolute mess down at wherever they want to call themselves, Gosh's Paddock or Casey or whatever you want to call it. They're just a mess, the Demons. The Suns should win that one and keep their home record pretty good.
Yep.
The massive one, like you said, the heavyweight bout is everything that a heavyweight bout should be. It's the Giants and the Dockers at NG Stadium. This is the sort of game, though, that the Dockers just come out and win. Yeah. After losing games that they should win, they just come out and win a game against a team that's unbeatable. You can just see it happening. They'll need a massive game from Caleb, and I think the most important thing for them is whoever plays on Jesse.
So they're the 2 pieces.
They really miss Alex Pearce.
And Jesse Hogan,
If Pearce was playing, they're probably almost favourite in terms of, they're probably better at the pieces they've got in the midfield. And if Tracy plays, very hard for the Giants to defend. But without Alex Pearce, Jesse Hogan can just, run rampant. So, I agree with you. It's Sarong, he's going to play well, but he needs to. Brayshaw probably has to go with him. And whoever has the job down in their defence just has to play the game of their lives because Jesse Hogan is every bit as good as everyone thought he was going to be when he was drafted down to Melbourne. Very good story as well. Could go either way. 3rd versus 6th. Everything, absolutely everything on the line there. As it is at the MCG in the grand final rematch part 2. This one, not at the Gabba though. It's the proper rematch. Back at the scene of the crime. And it's all set up for the Lions to bounce back because the Magpies are down on the ground. Their wings have been chopped. Yep. But you just see the Pies getting up and winning this.
Yes, you could. But for the Lions in particular, playing at the MCG, where they want to be back on the last Saturday of September, it's not a bad time to get a match up on this particular ground, especially against a team that you want to be beating on the MCG after their second most recent matchup after
and it would give
that
them
grand final win for Collingwood.
It would give them heaps of mental momentum in terms of if they would go back there in any other final, going down to Melbourne and beating the reigning premier, albeit they're bandaged, they're a little bit banged up. But if you go down and beat them convincingly, next time they're there will be a final, and they'll be like, all right, we're all good here. Yeah. Like the grand final was nothing. Yeah. Like we're going to do this. Flip side, though, if they go down and they lose
Another
to
loss
a
at the
wounded
MCG.
Collingwood,
For Brisbane as well, they've famously not won many games there over recent memory.
they'll lose the first final if it's close, because that's the sort of thing that goes to the front of your mind in a close game, is those demons from the past.
Yeah.
So the Pies might not make the finals, but they'd be so happy to beat the Lions at the G again, because it just make them feel like the granny again. You can just know it. The showdown, just in case this round wasn't big enough already, it's the showdown in Adelaide, and I've said this about Port for the last month. Who the hell knows how this is going to go?
They'll be wearing the prison bar, I'm pretty sure, so that maybe that gives them a little something.
Gosh, you'd be excited in the stands seeing that, but it's just like the Crows were so good on the weekend. They're finally at full strength, which they haven't had all year, and the way they play, you just know that they're a finals team if they had everything
if it
go
all comes
right.
together,
And Port Adelaide, just no idea. Like, Melbourne weren't good at all on the weekend. They took it right to them. They just don't look complete. You just don't trust them. But at the same time, they could come out and win this by 10 goals. Like, who knows? They beat Sydney by 100. Like, what the hell, man? Anyway, your Cats go under the lid, which is rare, and they host Woodsy's Saints. So a bit of a Zoe Yoda Cup,
if you will, yes.
At Marvel Stadium, 4th versus 14th.
Yes, well, relatively confident for the Cats to get a victory here, and we've got the Saints and the Eagles to finish off the season, so not the worst possible run. Don't get a big team that you could sort of match up against and get sort of a finals vibe that like a Hawthorn got when they played the Blues, but hopefully that on the other side of that, it's 2 wins going into a finals campaign. Don't have to travel too, so we did the Perth trip last week, so staying in Victoria is also a plus, particularly considering, as we've mentioned before, that there are quite a few non-Victorian teams at the top end of the ladder, so travelling is probably something the Cats will have to do at some point in September should they make a deep enough run. But yeah, I'll be interested in both of these particular games. If they're on at different times, I'd probably be trying to watch both of them in their individual time slots, but they both start at 7:30. It's another event that will be on at the same time, which we're about to get to, that I will watch as well. So
I think the way that Danger's playing, he's found that form which has eluded him for a while. Just how do you defeat that when the Cats are up and going is so important. And I would absolutely love the Cats to win that and finish second, just because it would be amazing with the new stand down at the Cattery to have a qualifying final. I know it doesn't hold anywhere near as many. I know the money won't be the same, but just do it for the vibes. It would be so cool, regardless of who they're playing. And if they win this match and the next, it's every bit like it could happen. But that's your end of your Saturday night. Sunday starts with the Dogs and the Kangaroos, which you never know, could be entertaining. Harry Sheasel could go off, and they were probably pretty motivated after last week, choking down in Tassie. But the Dogs just have to win this. They're all tipped to win this. They're playing better football. They got a better team. If they lose, Bevo will be losing his mind. My Hawks get the Tigers in a rematch of Dusty's 300th, where we tore them apart. Hopefully, it'll be pretty simple. Hopefully.
Yes.
You never know.
Won't be as big of a crowd there, undoubtedly. For MCG on a...
It is a Hawks home game, and we just broke our membership record, so you'd love to see a lot of people.
Good crowd.
Yeah, down at that one.
Not quite 90,000 though.
And it'll be big. Hopefully the Hawks can get another win and push themselves deeper into the 8. And then the danger game of the round, the West Coast Eagles, the red hot West Coast Eagles, the almost full strength West Coast Eagles, will farewell one of, by games, their greats, Andrew Gaff. In his last game, his farewell, they'll be all pumped up. That Optus crowd will be going nuts because they will smell blue blood all over the place. But like I said before, this is Vossi's legacy right here.
With the 16th place team playing 9th are the very narrowed, admittedly, but bookies' favourites, just because of all the injuries.
Probably the closest ever between 16th and 9th. I've just been told from the great man out the back, Geelong could host a final. It could be expected 55,000 at the AFL's discretion. So thanks for doing that research, Mr. Woods. But that's your round 23.
Well, given
the penultimate round of the AFL season. I know I'll be taking it in, and I can't wait for it. There's a lot riding on all of these games. It's going to be phenomenal. And you just know that it's going to be non-stop, but the sort of stuff you can't take your eyes off.
I was just gonna mention, given the fact that the Saints and the Giants drew 69,000, I think it was. I was actually at that game for their elimination final. 55,000 is probably gettable for a Geelong qualifying final or first week final, but I guess we'll see.
Something else you said you were going to be watching on
Yes.
Saturday night. What is that?
That is the New Zealand Darts Masters after the Australian Darts Masters occurred over the weekend. So they're actually in this region, which they don't go to very often, just for these couple of weeks in August, which is good as part of their World Series, which has been going on for nearly a decade now, getting the game of darts around the world. I think that the second event actually was in Sydney, but this event was in Wollongong. I was speaking to a new member of Extra Time, Josh. He also is a big darts fan, and we've been talking about this a few times. Why it's in Wollongong instead of, a Melbourne or a Sydney? Given the fact that they've held
The
PDC
gong.
events
That is random.
in Melbourne and Sydney and Perth and Brisbane as well. I don't know why it was end up in Wollongong, but I'm sure whoever organised that...
Must
I'm
be
sure
a big
they're-
darts place. The Gong.
Maybe indeed. But that happened over Friday and Saturday, the 9th and 10th. So the World Series, how this typically works is you get a big name PDC players taking on some of the best local players from both the country and the region. So you get some interesting sort of matchups. All the PDC superstars won their matches relatively comfortably. Rob Cross had to fight his way over a win against the New Zealand number one, and even Luke Littler played Rob Mundra, who played very well. It was 6-2, but it was a lot closer than that just watching it. So that happened on the Friday, and then let's try not to do that, Lorenzo. And then on the Saturday, we had finals night. So the eventual champion was Gerwyn Price. He had a brilliant tournament all the way through. He's been in and out of form a lot this year. He didn't have a great Premier League back earlier in the year, but he was good over this particular event. 8-1 victory over Luke Littler. He just couldn't hit doubles, unfortunately. Littler. He played great in the quarterfinal and semi-final, averaging 104, 105. Was outscored early. Got it back pretty much level scoring, but just couldn't hit a double. It was like a team that was great in the middle of the ground, but just couldn't find couldn't kick a ball through the big sticks. I will also shout out after the match, PDC, they're great on social media. They put stuff up. Someone posted in the replies to Instagram another is it? I think I might have misspelled that. Another lesson for little kid, referring to Luke after he got smashed. And Luke responded to him with another 10,000 for little kid. So that gets you the idea
I love that.
of Littler. Yeah, I've no issues. He'll bounce back. They're in New Zealand this particular weekend. Littler will be there. So will Luke Humphries, world champion. He had a disappointing match. He got knocked out against Dimitri van den Berg, the Belgian number one and UK Open winner from this year. So that will be on this particular weekend in New Zealand over in Hamilton. Rob Cross is won the events in Australia and New Zealand last year, all building up to the World Series of Darts finals, which happens mid-September in Amsterdam. And then back half of the year, they go crazy with their big events. World Grand Prix, European Championship, Grand Slam of Darts, Players Championships, and then the World Championships over the Christmas period as well. So it's all slowly building up. It's a bit quiet this time of year in terms of the big leagues as sort of the big stars, but it goes big after sort of October. So we'll be keeping an eye on it. Damon Heta is our Australian. He's our Australian number one. He did have a first round win, was knocked out in the second round by Price. He'll be over there as one of the PDC stars in New Zealand. He's in good form at the moment. Was disappointing at the World Cup, knocked out in the first round of the World Match Play in mid-July against Ryan Searle, but he'll be in all of those events that I mentioned, probably. Maybe not the Grand, he may have to qualify for the Grand Slam. Should be in the European Championship, Players Championships, and he'll definitely be at the Grand Prix. So that's where that stands at the moment. So I've got a big decision on, we'll see how things are going on Saturday night, how Geelong is faring, how that showdown is going down, and if Littler or Heta get knocked out early in the darts, I may keep it on the football, but if they make a bit of a deep run, they haven't done the draw yet, I think that should be tomorrow, hopefully. So that'll all happening on Saturday night, the second day of the New Zealand Darts Masters. The first night is the Friday. So yeah, huge things happening this weekend, like you said, and the way that, like you mentioned before, their social media go about covering it, and then the broadcasts themselves are so entertaining. So basically, if you've got time, you don't want to watch the Saints butcher the footy. You don't want to watch Port Adelaide because they're awful to watch. Turn the darts on. It'll be on KO.
Like Lorenzo just mentioned, their coverage is phenomenal, and why wouldn't you when you've got world-class players,
they've got their best players. These aren't ranking events, these aren't major, but they are televised, they are important for the growth of the sport, which is why they're a good watch most of the times. And maybe you can get a surprise if one of these local stars do upstage a big PDC star, make a little bit of run at a tournament, like Damon Hedder famously did in Brisbane in 2019, won that event, and has gone on to be a top 10 player and been challenging for majors, won the World Cup for Australia a couple of years ago as well, yeah.
It's going to be massive. And you mentioned locals. It is time for local footy. Our last segment of the day. And not too much to report from Woods. Obviously, his boys didn't quite get the chocolates on the weekend. And there's not much else going on there. But for me, it's all ramping up. I cannot wait for this. The West Gippsland Footy Netball Comp Finals. The venues have been announced there. I'm so excited because it's been the closest it has ever been in the senior football, at least in as long as I can remember, since the league was created in 2017. All of these decks are amazing as well, manicured to perfection. The weather is turning it on at the moment too. And Phillip Island absolutely dismantled my boys Inverloch Colmac, the reigning premiers. 10 goals they won by on the weekend, and Prime Train played, but he wasn't even as dominant as you'd expect by his standards. He had a great game, but his standards are a lot higher than everybody else's. It was two brothers named Bruce who did pretty well out of the midfield, former VFL. Some young kids as well, both kicked 3 goals. They're just an absolute pleasure to watch, the Bulldogs at full flight. And at the moment, it looks like they're on a collision course with Coralline to play in another grand final. They played each other in 2019 down at Garfield, the same scene of this grand final this year. And it was a 3-point win to Phillip Island, one of the best grand finals I've seen in my life. And it's all looking like they'll go head-to-head again. And Nathan Gardner, the spearhead for Coralline, 98 goals. He kicked 9 on the weekend in Warragul. So he needs 2 more this week, and he'll kick 100 for the second straight year. So Phillip Island will have to contend with that if they play them in the grand final. And the Cobras will have to contend with all of Phillip Island's firepower. It's going to be massive. It all kicks off down at my digs, down in Inverloch. Can't wait for that eliminator. And every game of netball and football in every division is going to be phenomenal. I can't wait. That's your local footy for this week. That's your Extra Time podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe for all of the podcasts, all of the trivia. We did another one today you will see for the Olympics, a full coverage of that with me and Woodsy. Make sure you check that out as well if you're wondering why we didn't mention that in this one. And make sure you check out all of our podcasts and our trivia, as I said before. We're always making them. We'll be with you next week. But until then, like and subscribe. Take in the footy, take in the darts, and we'll see you next week.